Welcome to another episode of Aussie Box Office Charts. I am Alan Gamble, and let's get into it because we've got a lot of big news. Starting with the top 5, Minecraft holds top spot quite easily with another $10.4 million this weekend. In week 2, dropping only 24%, which is an incredible hold for a movie of that scale, for a current total of $29.9 million. That does make it the highest grossing movie in Australia for 2025, but we'll get more into that later. The Amateur opens at number 2 with $1.2 million for a current total of 1.2. Dogman drops to third spot with another $1.1 million, gaining 12% for a current total of $3.8 million in its week 2 of release. That is what we'll call the school holiday effect, with Minecraft's very tight hold and Dogman gaining 12%. In fourth spot, we have The Chosen Last Supper Part 1 with $740,000, which pushed King of Kings all the way to opening in 14th position with $114,000, because The Chosen ate most of the Christian audience. At fifth spot, we have Andre Rieu, opens in number 5, bringing in another $500,000, $571,000, as he always does. All of his movies, when they release in cinemas, bring in around that $500,000 to $600,000 range without fail. So he just has a group of people that always go to his movies. So there's our top 5 for this week. Taking a quick updated look at video game movies, we looked at the openings last week with Minecraft releasing, but let's take a look at the total domestic box office in the Australian market for all these video game movies. And you can see pretty clearly Minecraft is already at number 2 of all time. Now, there are a couple of sequels and stuff that are excluded from this list. I either couldn't get their numbers, or I tried to just limit the number of franchises present to give a more even spread of what's been released over the last 20 odd years. But with that said, Minecraft in at number 2 with $29.9 million, trailing Super Mario Bros. From 2023 at $50.6 million, but it is leagues ahead of everything else, with Uncharted, Lara Croft Tomb Raider, both coming in at 3rd and 4th, Sonic the Hedgehog and Detective Pikachu, Five Nights at Freddy's, all around that $13 to $15 million range, and then everything else. But even if we adjust these numbers for inflation, there is no denying a Minecraft movie is an incredible universal hit. When we adjust the numbers for inflation, Lara Croft Tomb Raider from 2001 gets a big boost, but nothing else even comes close to where Minecraft is already. That said, it still does have a little bit of a climb to catch Super Mario Bros. From 2023, but it is leading the charge because remember, a Minecraft movie opened much higher than Super Mario Bros. Did. Now, with the end of the school holidays approaching within the next week or two, how will that hold up and will that number drop off a cliff? We'll have to wait and see. Moving on to 6 through 10 for week 15. Sees Disney Snow White drops down to number 6 with another $558,000 after 4 weeks of release, dropping just 12% for a current total of $7.2 million. Sidebar for this one, Snow White has finally beaten Pete's Dragon. It is no longer the lowest live-action Disney remake of all time. It has passed Pete's Dragon, and now it needs another $1 million to beat out the next highest of Christopher Robin, before it needs a lot more legs to get any higher than that. We'll see how it ends up, and I will let you guys know. Death of a Unicorn opens in 7th position with $330,000 for a current total of just over $500,000. A Working Man drops down to number 8 with $317,000 after 3 weeks of release, dropping another 57% for a current total of $3.4 million. Good, Bad, Ugly and Akal the Unconquered, 2 films out of India, rounding out the top 10 with positions 9 and 10, with $268,000 and $212,000 respectively, both new entries on the charts. Looking at what's out of the top 10 this week, Bridget Jones, Mad About the Boy, after 9 weeks of release. Mikey 17 is out after 6 weeks of release, great effort from that. Black Bag out after 5 weeks of release. And Novocaine is out after 2 weeks of just entering the chart last week. Poor effort from that, but Black Bag and Novocaine are my two favourite 2025 releases so far, so shame on y'all for not seeing it at the cinemas. Alright, we have the big chart for the year, the 2025 top 10 of the Australian box office. At number 1, after just 2 weeks of release, is a Minecraft movie with a whopping $29.9 million, jumping straight to top spot. That pushes Paddington in Peru down to number 2 at $17.7 million. Bridget Jones' Mad About the Boy at $16.4 million. And at number 3, Captain America moves down to 4 with $13.8 million. A Complete Unknown holds at number 5 with $8.5 million. Conclave holds at 6 with $8.4 million. And Nosferatu holds 7th spot with just over $8 million. Nizar 2 still holds 8th spot with $7.4 million. Snow White leapfrogs over We Live in Time with $7.2 million to take 9th spot. Some slight consolation prize there, I guess. We Live in Time moves down to number 10 with $6.7 million as a closed Frozen movie. There's the headline. Minecraft, number 1 after 2 weeks. Great showing. Let's see how it will hold up against some of the other big summer blockbusters, but I think it's got a good lead for the year. Taking a look at an updated chart that I've been doing for the year, total weekend box office for the entire Australian market. In pink, we have 2023, blue is 2024, and orange is 2025. Now you can see that for the start of the year, the first few weeks, we were tracking along with expectations. It just kept going down and down and down and down all through January and into February. In weekend 7, we had the dual release of Bridget Jones' Mad About the Boy and Captain America Brave New World, which gave it a big boost. And then because those movies underperformed, especially Captain America, we see that orange line go right back down to under the blue and pink lines. The blue and pink line both got a spike in weekend 13, thanks to Super Mario Bros. In 2023, and the combination of Godzilla x Kong and Kung Fu Panda 4 in 2024. In 2025, we had to wait an extra week, but you can see that same angle up, and we'll see how we hold moving forward there. Rough start to the year for 2025, but not too far behind where we have been other years. I am tempted to go back to like 2019 and see what those numbers look like, so I might incorporate those in future. And time to take a quick look at what's coming up this week, theatrically wide releases. On April 17th, we have The Correspondent, a new Australian movie from director Kriv Stenders about an Australian journalist, Peter Greste, caught up in reporting from Egypt in 2013 and accused of terrorism, based on real-life events. Drop, a new thriller from director Christopher Langdon and starring Megan Fay, about a single mother who goes on her first date in years and is terrorized by anonymous drops to her phone during the date, and she needs to work out who and where and why they're coming from. Sinners, from director Ryan Coogler, the director of Creed and Black Panther, and starring Michael B. Jordan and Hallie Steinfeld, about a pair of twin brothers leaving their troubles behind to return home only to find a greater evil waiting. We have The Penguin Lessons from director Peter Catano, starring Steve Coogan and set in 1976 Argentina. On the edge of a political revolution, a teacher and his students are enlightened by an unexpected guest. I suspect it's a penguin. And lastly, we have Warfare, one of my most anticipated movies of the week, the latest Alex Garland movie, this time also co-written and directed by Ray Mendoza, about a team of Navy SEALs getting through a hostile zone. And since sound design in Alex Garland movies is always on point, I can't wait to catch this one on the big screen. On the streaming front, only a couple of major ones. April 16th sees the release of Government Cheese on Apple TV, the latest Apple TV comedy series who have been on fire recently, let's be honest. And this one is about a released criminal who is attempting to win back his family and keep his criminal past at bay. And finally, April 22nd sees the start of the release of Andor Season 2, The final season in a long-awaited gold standard of Star Wars spin-offs returns to Disney+. I just finished rewatching season 1 as I did the entire chronological watch of Star Wars over the last couple of years, starting with the Clone Wars into the Bad Batch, Solo, Rebels, and into Andor season 1, which is going to lead right into season 2, and then I'll probably rewatch Rogue One after season 2 finishes. The first 3 episodes are releasing on April 22nd, and that is followed by 3 episodes per week until it finishes. Time for what I watched for this week's Cinechums Movie Challenge for the week of the inanimate object. I ended with 6 movies this week, so let's get into them. First up was Novocaine, currently in theatres and directed by Robert Olsen and Dan Burke, and written by Lars Jacobson, starring Jack Quaid and Amber Midthunder. For challenge requirements, the movie title is The Name of a Drug, which is an object. An action comedy about a quiet man with a genetic disorder that lets him not feel any pain is forced to save the girl, and he must use his disability into a strength. I really enjoyed this one. It's one of my favourite movies of 2025 so far, alongside Black Bag. There is another movie that could have been the movie they made, but instead of coasting on the premise, all of the people involved put in that little bit more effort than they needed to in order to raise the whole movie up to another level. Really solid effort. Next was from 2021, The Map of Tiny Perfect Things, from director Ian Samuels and written by Lev Grossman, and starring Kyle Allen and Catherine Newton. For challenge requirements, the movie title is The Name of a Thing. A time loop movie, this one playing more on the romantic comedy side of things, but with a little heart and feels as required. I liked it, but releasing this not long after Palm Springs released probably saw this movie being unfavourably compared, but it's still a decent movie in its own right. Everyone loves a time loop movie, and this is another one of them. Moving on from this year was The Life List, directed by Adam Brooks and starring Sophia Carson and Kyle Allen. Again, for challenge requirements, the movie title is The Name of a Thing, a romantic comedy with a bucket list angle, mostly following the usual flow and will generally follow exactly what you expect from romantic comedies, but with a couple of wild cards tossed in to spice it up a little bit. I liked it for what it was, but only having 10 things on a bucket list is weak sauce in my opinion. I've got about 140 things on my bucket list, so come on, step up your game. Next up, from Apple TV Plus in 2022 was The Greatest Beer Run Ever, directed by Peter Farrelly and starring Zac Efron, Russell Crowe, and, you guessed it, Kyle Allen. For challenge requirements, we have beer in the title. An interesting one that has a 49 critic score, 91 audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, which I always find fascinating to see how I'll land. About a true story of a slacker that commits to taking beer to his mates that are fighting in the Vietnamese War. I thought a lot of the messaging wasn't done really, really well. But when it was having fun adventures, it was having a good time, it was more enjoyable. But when you make a movie about the Vietnam War, you kind of have to at least address some of the elephants in the room, but I felt it could have been done better. That said, it did end really strong with a solid emotional tone. Next was the Steven Spielberg classic from 1989, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. And you should already know who wrote it and directed it, as well as everyone that starred in it. For challenge requirements, the movie was all about seeking the Holy Grail, an action-adventure classic that I think most people would have seen many, many times, and yeah, it's still absolutely solid, holds up, not too much to say. If you are somehow in a black hole that you haven't seen it, you probably should. And finally was 2006 Brick, from a very early writer-director, Rian Johnson, starring Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Amelia Duravan and Nora Zeltner. For challenge requirements, the title is an inanimate object, telling of a noir mystery, except set in a high school with all the cliques and games that comes with that, but with a number of other elements that come into play, like violence and drugs. Really cool movie, very stylish, some great sequences and some great scenes, really well written with solid performances all around. Great one to catch up on if it comes up for another week's challenge and you haven't caught this one, but it's really cool to see the origins of Rian Johnson. Time to take a look at this week's upcoming Cinechums Movie Challenge for Good, Bad, Best, Worst. So, things that celebrate the good, like The Greatest Showman or Perfect Days. Movies that celebrate bad, like Bad Guys or Horrible Bosses or The Worst Person in the World. And things about becoming the best or worst, like Talladega Nights, Warrior, Black Swan, Trainwreck. We have a few examples there, like Bad Boys, obviously, Bad Teacher, Bad Santa. We have things like Good Fellas, Horrible Bosses, Good Boys, Perfect Days, Rush, Rocky. Any sports movie tends to play into this, but let's take a look at my shortlist. My shortlist for this week's Cinechums Movie Challenge is looking a little bit like things with New Best Friend. First Man, about being the first on the moon. It's a Wonderful Life. Ed Wood, which is about the apparently worst director of all time. Incredible but True, A Fantastic Woman. Notorious is high on my list this week. Better Luck Next Time. Filth. So we've got a few to choose from. So we'll see how we go. That is it for me this week. Tune in next week, where I will 100% have caught Warfare at cinemas this upcoming weekend. I'm not sure if the Easter public holiday, both the Friday and the Monday, will impact box office reporting. So next week's episode may be delayed if the numbers don't come in on time or we have different reporting schedules or however that might work. This is my first year doing this, so I don't know what changes happen over these long weekends. But we'll see how we go anyway. I'm going to spend the long weekend setting up camera stuff and getting that tested and see if I can make that all work. So hopefully moving forward, we do have some visuals in place of this. But anyway, that's it for me this week. Have a good Easter break if you don't see something. Otherwise, go see more movies. All right. Bye.